Welcome to our deep dive on quality by design in pharmaceutical development.
Specifically, how it's applied to those fascinating areas you're exploring.
Yeah, cannabinoids and psychedelics.
We've got a stack of research articles, your own notes, even some guidelines to unpack.
Our mission today is understanding how QBD helps build quality into medicines from the very start.
Right, from the get-go.
So you can be confident in their consistency and effectiveness.
It's fascinating because QBD really flips the script on traditional pharmaceutical development.
Oh, how so?
Well, instead of just testing the final product, it's about understanding the entire manufacturing process and how each step impacts quality.
So it's less about checking the medicine at the end and more about knowing how it's made every step of the way.
Yeah.
That sounds like a huge shift.
It is.
Especially when we're talking about things like synthetic cannabinoids or those complex plant extracts where there's so much variability to consider.
Exactly. It's about building quality in proactively rather than reactively trying to test it in.
Got it.
And that's where the ICH guidelines come in. They're like the foundational rule book for QBD.
ICH, that's the International Council for Harmonization, right?
Yes.
They set global standards for pharmaceuticals.
Exactly.
I'm guessing those guidelines are pretty dense, though.
They can be a bit much, yeah.
What are the key takeaways I should be focusing on?
Well, you've got ICH Q8, Q9, and Q10. They're the cornerstones.
Okay.
Q8 focuses on pharmaceutical development, emphasizing a science-based and risk-managed approach.
So Q8 is about understanding how the manufacturing process from raw materials to the finished product affects the quality of the medicine.
Yes, exactly.
That makes sense. But how do we even begin to map out those relationships?
It starts with defining those critical quality attributes.
Okay.
Those characteristics that are essential for the drug's safety and efficacy.
Right.
Then it's about meticulously studying how different factors in the manufacturing process can impact those attributes.
So like cause and effect.
Exactly like a detective carefully piecing together clues to solve a complex case.
Intriguing. So by understanding those relationships, we can start to anticipate potential problems before they even arise.
Yes, very much so.
I'm guessing that's where ICH Q9 comes in, risk management.
You got it. Q9 provides a structured framework for identifying, assessing, and controlling potential risks throughout the entire development process.
Oh, it's comprehensive.
It is, and this is especially crucial when dealing with those complex molecules you mentioned.
Right.
Cannabinoids or psychedelics, where the manufacturing processes can be intricate.
Yes.
And even slight variations can have significant consequences.
I see. Now I understand that ICH Q10 deals with the pharmaceutical quality system.
Yes.
Isn't that something companies should already have in place?
Most pharmaceutical companies do have quality systems, but Q10 takes it a step further.
Okay, how so?
It's about establishing a comprehensive system that encompasses every facet of development and manufacturing, ensuring consistent quality from start to finish.
From start to finish.
Yes, it's about weaving a culture of quality into the very fabric of the organization.
So Q10 ensures that everyone involved, from the scientists developing the drug to the technicians operating the equipment, are all on the same page when it comes to quality.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like having this overarching framework that holds everything together.
Precisely, and this is particularly important when you're dealing with the variability inherent in those complex natural extracts you're interested in.
Oh, I see.
Imagine sourcing cannabis for a specific therapeutic use.
Okay.
Q10 helps standardize everything from cultivation practices to extraction methods. Ensuring consistency and reliability in the final product.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
It seems like QBD is as much about managing the natural world's variability as it is about controlling the manufacturing processes themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially when you consider the complexities of something like a psychedelic compound derived from a rare plant.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about how these QBD principles apply to those specific types of drugs you mentioned. Those single molecule synthetics versus the complex natural extracts.
Okay.
They each present unique challenges and opportunities from a QBD perspective.
Yeah, in the notes you shared, there was this comparison between synthetic cannabinoids or psychedelics.
Right.
Those would be single molecule drugs, right?
Exactly.
And those plant-derived extracts.
Right.
What's the difference in terms of QBD?
Single molecule drugs, like a synthetic cannabinoid,
Okay.
are chemically well-defined.
Okay.
They're relatively straightforward to manufacture and control,
Okay.
making it easier to establish those critical quality attributes.
I see.
But there's still a need for stringent controls to ensure purity and consistency.
Oh, okay.
Imagine developing a new synthetic psychedelic for therapeutic use.
Okay.
Even a tiny impurity could alter its effects,
Wow.
potentially jeopardizing patient safety.
So even though they're simpler to make, there's still a little room for error.
Exactly. QBD helps minimize those risks by meticulously controlling each step of the process, ensuring the final product is precisely what it's supposed to be.
That makes sense, but what about those complex natural extracts?
Right.
We're talking about hundreds of different compounds, varying growing conditions.
Right.
How does QBD even begin to address that level of complexity?
That's where QBD really shines.
Okay.
It acknowledges the inherent variability
Okay.
and provides a framework for understanding and managing it.
Okay.
Let's take that psychedelic compound from a rare Amazonian plant as an example.
Okay.
QBD would start with thoroughly characterizing the plant itself,
Okay.
identifying the key chemical markers that contribute to its therapeutic effects.
So you're creating a detailed fingerprint of what makes that plant therapeutically valuable.
Precisely then, it's about using that knowledge to develop robust extraction processes
Okay.
that consistently capture those key markers, even when the plant material itself might vary from batch to batch.
I see.
It's a challenge.
It sounds like QBD is as much about understanding the nuances of the natural world as it is about controlling the manufacturing process.
You're absolutely right. It's about working with nature, not against it.
Okay.
And that brings us to a fundamental concept in QBD reproducibility.
Okay, reproducibility.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that means making sure each batch of the drug is essentially identical.
Exactly.
How we actually achieve that level of control in the real world, especially with these complex molecules.
That's a great question, and one we'll delve into much deeper next time.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm definitely intrigued to learn more about the tools and techniques that make this level of precision possible.
It's fascinating stuff.
I bet it is. Until next time, then.
See you then. So before we left off, we were talking about reproducibility, making sure that each batch of medicine, whether it's a synthetic cannabinoid or a complex plant extract, needs to be consistent.
Right, but that sounds incredibly challenging.
It can be.
How do we actually make that happen in the real world?
Well, one of the most powerful tools in the QBD arsenal is design of experiments,
Design of experiments.
or DOE.
DOE. That sounds familiar. I know it's used in a variety of fields, not just pharmaceuticals.
It is a very versatile tool.
How is it applied specifically in the context of QBD?
Think of those complex plant extracts you're interested in. Imagine using DOE to fine-tune the extraction process.
Okay.
Factors like temperature, pressure, even the type of solvent used.
I see.
DOE helps us understand how tweaking those knobs affects the final product.
So we can pinpoint the optimal settings that consistently extract those desirable compounds,
Exactly.
while minimizing unwanted byproducts. I can see how that would be crucial for something like a psychedelic compound, where even slight variation that could significantly alter its effects.
Precisely by carefully designing experiments and analyzing the data, we can create a design space,
A design space.
a range of settings where we know the process will perform reliably.
So that design space gives manufacturers some flexibility
Right,
while
yeah.
still maintaining quality. They can adjust parameters within that defined space without having to go through a lengthy regulatory approval process each time.
That's right. It's a balance between control and flexibility, but DOE is only one part of the equation.
Okay, what's the other part?
We also need to monitor the process in real time to make sure we stay within those defined limits.
Okay.
That's where Process Analytical Technology, or PUTT, comes in.
That was mentioned earlier. It's about having eyes on the process as it's happening, right?
Yeah.
It's not just testing the final product weeks later.
Exactly.
What kind of tools are used in POTTEM?
PUTT encompasses a wide range of technologies.
Okay, like what?
We might use near-infrared spectroscopy to monitor the moisture content of a plant extract during drying or high-performance liquid chromatography to track the concentration of a specific cannabinoid during an extraction.
So we can actually see what's happening inside those reactors and extractors as the medicine is being made.
Yes, it's like having a window into the process.
That's amazing. And the beauty of PET-T is that it doesn't just help us control the process. It generates data that can be used to further refine our understanding.
Absolutely. It's a continuous feedback loop.
We learn more about the process with each batch, allowing us to further optimize those settings and tighten those control limits.
Precisely, and this data-driven approach is particularly valuable when working with complex natural products where the variability can be significant.
Okay, this is all incredibly fascinating, but I need to hear how these concepts are being applied in the real world. Are there any companies out there using QBD to develop new cannabinoid or psychedelic therapies?
Absolutely. There's a growing number of companies embracing QBD in these areas.
Okay, can you give me an example?
One company, let's call them Phytopharma, is using a combination of DOE PAT and advanced analytical techniques to develop a standardized extract of a specific cannabinoid with potential therapeutic benefits for chronic pain.
That sounds promising. What are some of the specific challenges they face in standardizing that cannabinoid extract?
Well, remember, even within a single cannabis plant, the concentration of different cannabinoids can vary significantly depending on factors like genetics, growing conditions, and even the part of the plant that's used.
Right, so consistency is a major hurdle. How is Phytopharma using QBD to overcome that?
They started by meticulously characterizing their cannabis strains, identifying the genetic markers associated with high levels of the target cannabinoid.
Okay.
Then they used DOE to optimize their cultivation methods, experimenting with different light cycles, nutrient solutions, and harvesting techniques.
So they're controlling the variability right from the source.
Exactly. And by implementing PATI, they can monitor those cannabinoid levels throughout the growth cycle, making adjustments in real time to ensure consistency.
It sounds like a sophisticated dance between science and nature.
It is a delicate balance, but what about the extraction process itself?
Right. I imagine that's also a critical step in ensuring a standardized product.
Absolutely. Phytopharma has invested heavily in state-of-the-art extraction equipment and has used DOE to determine the optimal settings for temperature, pressure, and solvent ratios.
Wow.
They've also implemented PATE to monitor the extraction process in real time, ensuring that each batch consistently yields the desired cannabinoid profile.
They're really pulling out all the stops to control those variables. What happens after the extract is produced? How do they ensure it meets those stringent quality standards?
That's where those advanced analytical techniques come in. They use techniques like high-performance liquid chromatography and mass spectrometry to precisely measure the concentration of different cannabinoids and identify any potential impurities.
I see.
They're basically creating a detailed fingerprint of their ideal extract and ensuring that each batch matches that fingerprint.
It's impressive to see how QBD principles are being applied to bring those potentially life-changing cannabinoid therapies to patients. But what about those psychedelic compounds you mentioned earlier? Are there similar efforts underway in that space?
There are, and it's a particularly exciting area. Remember that psychedelic compound derived from the rare Amazonian plant we discussed earlier?
Yes.
A company, let's call them MindMed, is taking a very similar QBD-driven approach to develop a standardized and pharmaceutical-grade version of that compound.
That sounds incredibly challenging. I'm imagining sourcing that rare plant material alone must be a logistical hurdle. How are they managing that?
It's definitely a challenge, but MindMed has partnered with indigenous communities in the Amazon who sustainably cultivate the plant.
Okay.
They've also invested in research to propagate the plant in controlled environments, ensuring a consistent supply of high-quality raw material.
That's an incredible example of how QBD can extend beyond the manufacturing process itself, encompassing ethical sourcing and environmental sustainability.
Precisely. And just like Phytopharma, MindMed is using DOE to optimize their extraction process, ensuring they consistently capture the desired psychedelic compound while minimizing unwanted byproducts.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It seems like QBD is less about following a rigid set of rules and more about using a scientific mindset and advanced technologies to create high-quality medicines.
That's a great way to put it. It's about using data experimentation and a deep understanding of the process to ensure consistency and safety.
This is all incredibly encouraging. But I have to wonder, are there any limitations or challenges to the QBD approach? After all, no system is perfect.
That's a fair point. While QBD offers many advantages, there are certainly challenges to consider. So one significant challenge is the initial investment required.
Right.
Implementing QBD often involves substantial upfront costs.
I see.
In terms of resources, specialized expertise, and cutting-edge technology, not every company, especially smaller startups, has the capacity to make those investments right away.
So it's a commitment, not just a quick fix.
Precisely. It requires a shift in mindset.
Okay.
Embracing a new way of thinking and working that can be challenging for some organizations. There's also a steep learning curve. QBD draws on a multidisciplinary skill set requiring collaboration between scientists, engineers, statisticians, quality assurance professionals, and even regulatory experts.
Wow, it sounds like you need a whole team fluent in the language of QBD.
You do. Finding and training those specialists can be a hurdle,
Yeah, I can imagine.
especially as the field is still evolving. And speaking of evolving, the regulatory landscape itself presents another challenge.
Yeah, okay.
While agencies like the FDA are generally supportive of QBD, the specific guidelines and expectations are still being refined.
So there's a bit of uncertainty about how to best implement QBD to meet those evolving requirements.
That's right. There's a need for clearer guidance and harmonization of standards across different regions.
I see.
This can be a bit of a moving target for companies trying to stay ahead of the curve.
It sounds like implementing QBD is a journey, not a destination.
A good way to put it.
But despite those challenges, it seems like the benefits, especially for developing those complex drugs like cannabinoids and psychedelics, would outweigh the costs.
I agree in these rapidly evolving fields where scientific understanding and regulatory landscapes are still taking shape.
Right.
QBD is invaluable.
Yeah.
It builds trust, ensures quality, and accelerates the development of safe and effective therapies. And this brings us back to a question we touched upon earlier, the future of QBD in the era of personalized medicine.
Yes. The idea of tailoring treatments to each individual patient is fascinating.
It is.
It sounds like science fiction becoming reality.
Mm-hmm.
How does QBD fit into that vision?
QBD is actually essential
Okay.
for the successful development and manufacturing of personalized therapies.
Okay.
Personalized medicine hinges on precisely controlling manufacturing processes
Right.
to create unique formulations for each individual. Think about it. Instead of a single one-size-fits-all drug, we could potentially have hundreds or even thousands of variations, each tailored to a specific patient.
Wow. That level of customization sounds incredibly complex. How can we possibly design a process that individualized?
That's where QBD shines. Remember, it's all about understanding those intricate relationships between input variables and critical quality attributes.
Right.
It provides the framework to achieve that level of customization.
So QBD is evolving from a tool for standardizing mass-produced drugs to one that individualizes therapies.
Exactly. And I think this evolution is already underway.
Oh, really? How so?
No, we're seeing growing interest in using QBD principles to develop personalized cell therapies, gene therapies, and even 3D printed drug formulations.
3D printed drugs, that sounds incredible.
It is. Imagine printing a tablet with a precise dose tailored to a patient's needs with a customized release profile to optimize its effectiveness.
Wow.
This is closer than you might think. Several companies are already developing 3D printers to create these customized formulations, and QBD is playing a key role in ensuring the quality and reproducibility of these printed medicines.
It seems like QBD is shaping the future of medicine.
I believe it is as we move toward more personalized and complex therapies. TBD will be essential in making these innovations safe, effective, and accessible to patients who need them.
This has been a truly fascinating deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much ground, from the foundational principles of QBD to its applications in those cutting-edge areas you're exploring, cannabinoids and psychedelics. We've even glimpsed into the future of personalized medicine. It's incredible to see how QBD is shaping the future of pharmaceuticals.
It has been a stimulating discussion. I'm glad we could explore these concepts together.
Me too. And to our listeners, we hope you've gained a newfound appreciation for the complexity and the incredible potential of QBD in pharmaceutical development.
Thanks.
It's all about ensuring that the medicines of tomorrow are not only effective, but also tailored to your individual needs. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning until next time on The Deep Dive.